Welcome to this week's edition of the Belau Report. I'm Jane Belau. Our guests, well, let's see. Let's make that a different kind of an introduction. Fall is coming. It's going to be cooler. The leaves will change color. And we're back again with Transform from the Mayo Clinic, which is an international effort at gathering new ideas for healthcare. And that's sort of an oversimplified summary. Dr. Michael Wood,
It's a great summary, Jane.
Medical Director of the Innovation Center, and Dr. Jean Huddleston, who is a hospitalist. That's a physician that works in a hospital mostly, but she's in the Innovation Center, and she's going to work on the Big Think Challenge.
Think Big Challenge, yes.
Good. Okay, so we have the experts here, and we're going to try and tell our viewers about this international conference that they're invited to if they would like to come. They just have to register and I think pay some fee. And it's really exciting. And we had Dr. Wood with us last year, and you stayed away too long.
Well, it was great to have you at Transform last year too, Jane. So now you have a good sense of what Transform is really like.
I do. I met people from all over the world.
Indeed.
And their ideas were remarkable.
It's a great chance for us to get people to come to Mayo and give us ways to think about things very differently. So many of the people we have are actually not from the healthcare industry.
The transform, what do you want to transform?
Our goal is to transform the experience of health. Very bold statement, but what it really means is that people experience health in terms of being able to live their lives the way that they really need to live their lives. We spend way too much time working on processes of healthcare and not enough time thinking about how we can help people be the kind of person they want to be. The best definition of health I ever heard was from a woman in Austin that we actually followed several years ago. She said, health means that I can do everything I need to so that the people who depend on me will be okay. It's not about measuring blood sugars or blood pressures. It's actually how people are able to live.
And Jean, you are in charge of the Big Think Challenge. Tell us what that is.
So the Think Big Challenge is an entrepreneurship challenge where a startup or a business leader will actually compete to take a Mayo Clinic intellectual property to market, to expand our use of the things that we do here at Mayo around the country or around the world.
Those are magnificent but huge goals. And organization of this effort has got to take a real good mind and a lot of time.
There's a team that works on this, and they start, as you might imagine, early. Over the years, we've developed a lot of ideas for people who we would like to come and share their ideas with us. And each year, when people come, we hear new ideas and get introduced to new people. So a design team takes responsibility for putting this entire thing together, and we work at it pretty hard.
What is an example, or what are some examples of past conferences and what we've put into place at Mayo?
Some of the most interesting ideas have actually been ones that look at how we can take care of people in different ways. So this year we'll hear from Dr. Prabhat Singh, who works in Harlem. He came to Transform several years ago and went away with some ideas about how he could better care for the residents that were close to his hospital. He made the remark when he was first here that there were 4 large academic medical centers within a really small radius, but the health of that neighborhood was really not as good as it could be. So he took that as a personal challenge to go back, and this year we're going to hear from him about all the things that he's been able to accomplish based on Transform.
Well, that would be great.
We'll hear another example from a brilliant woman from Rhode Island who actually came to Transform a number of years ago and then went back and did her work. And about 5 years ago, we had a story from, again, a brilliant young woman working in Boston who had the idea of recruiting college students to help physicians take care of the social needs of patients in their clinics. And her ideas actually were very useful to us when we started thinking about how to do this in our own primary care clinics. But we didn't have the benefit of 84 colleges in our backyard.
Oh.
So we did take advantage of University of Minnesota Rochester students, but given the small size of that student body, we ultimately had to find a way that we could create a paid position within the clinic, which we ultimately called a wellness navigator. And so this is how ideas that transform actually can make a big difference at Mayo. There's some other things that, if you go back and look, that are truly ahead of their time. For example, 3 years ago, we had a wonderful discussion about gun violence as a public health problem. And as I go back and think about the problems that are confronting most of us in the country today for gun violence, that presentation now has more meaning than it had before. And so our challenge is to bring that back and think about how we can build on that to make something actually happen.
This is exciting. This is exciting stuff. Dr. Jean Huddleston, how does a physician who is a hospitalist have a role in the Center for Innovation?
We have roles by being able to translate our clinical experiences to the designers. They follow us, they spend time with us. We listen to the patients, encourage those interactions, and help to share those stories with the designers as they do their experimentation. They sort of learn from us while we're doing our work.
Does Mayo have quite a few hospitalists or only a few?
There are more than 40 physicians and another 30 to 40 nurse practitioners and physician assistants now who are working in the Division of Hospital Medicine.
It's changing.
It is
so
changing rapidly.
Yes. I'm an old nurse. But anyway, so the Big Think Challenge has money connected with it, doesn't
Yes.
it?
It's a partnership with Mayo Clinic Ventures. And the partnership is the CFI is leading the challenge and working with someone who's done many of these sort of startup challenges historically. And the partnership with MCV is a prize of $50,000 to the entrepreneur who has the best pitch to take one of Mayo's ideas to market.
And what are some of the ideas? You did that last year. It wasn't called the same.
It was the Think Big Challenge then
Okay.
as well, but we're doing it a little bit differently this year. We're putting a twist on it. Instead of having new companies come to Mayo and share their ideas with us, instead we're sharing our ideas and asking entrepreneurs to compete and give us their go-to-market strategy to take our knowledge and our work further out into the world.
That's even better, isn't it?
Yes.
Because they're meeting a direct need and you're defining it.
Correct.
So,
Traditionally, you could write a paper and another hospital or clinic could pick up on what to do just by the paper. But technology is so advanced now and things are so complicated that you can't just read the paper about the research. You actually have to have someone help you get it done. And so by engaging with entrepreneurs, Mayo is going to actually take its work further.
think of how the feds could have improved the Affordable Care Act if they'd asked for that kind of approach. So how should we do this?
There's still opportunities.
I know there is. Of course you can keep your doctorate, you know. What is the most valuable thing that we have learned from the transforms of the past, in your view?
I would say the greatest lesson that we've learned is the power of people to make change. This year we will actually focus a bit more on that theme. So how does one person begin to create a movement? We'll have Will Steger, for example, share some of his insights about what he learned in his polar treks and then how he's been able to ultimately organize that into a way of thinking about climate change and making the world better. We'll have George Halverson, a gentleman that you and I both know well, who recently retired CEO of Kaiser, but who has deep Minnesota connections, talk to us about his idea of beginning to work with children in their developmental phases and how that would translate into long-term benefit. But again, the idea of one person, how can we create a movement based on that nascent beginning?
In Minnesota, that's coming at a timely event of the growing kindergarten for the young
Yes.
children. So if you can put all those together, that's exciting.
It's really exciting, I agree.
All right. Have you gotten any early proposals for the challenge?
Yes, we have. In fact, when we kicked off the challenge, we had over 1,500 hits on the website within the first week. We have a number of applicants that have already started. The deadline for the application process is at the end of this week. And since entrepreneurs often do things just in time to get things done, we anticipate we'll see quite an increase in the number of applications. We're estimating somewhere around 100 different applications.
And are there exciting ideas in those applications?
I haven't seen them
I know
yet.
you can't.
I haven't seen them yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I have not.
It would be hard to resist looking at
Yes.
those. And tell us about some of your other speakers that you have.
So this year we like to introduce, as in every year, some interesting perspectives. So we will have Stephen Dubner, who is a New York Times journalist and a co-author of the book Freakonomics, with an economist from the University of Chicago. And I'm not exactly sure what he's going to say when he comes, but Freakonomics is a great combination of pop culture and economics. And so I'm quite confident that he will look at the wild side, as it were, of economics and how we make decisions in health and healthcare. We'll also be privileged to hear from Mark Burrell, who's leading the Watson initiative for IBM. Again, a really remarkable way to think about healthcare as a knowledge industry and helping physicians make better choices.
And this goes back to some of the work in the 70s where they were trying to create healthcare databases, and it would help both doctors and hospitals to plug in what the diagnosis is, and you could get back all the
Exactly.
information on treatments.
Not only that, be able to make better decisions about what your options might be. So people who have health problems and their physicians confront sometimes a really dizzying array of choices. And trying to make sense of what the risks and benefits of each choice might be is somewhat difficult, especially when there's so much that you have to be able to sift through. So we're hoping that applying Watson will actually make some of those decisions a lot easier and therefore more meaningful to people, and they will probably result in better health as well, because again, if you think about the concept of health being, I need to do the things I need to so people will depend on me would be okay, when we think about the burden of illness from, say, the side effects of drug therapies, being able to tell somebody what that really would mean can help them make a better choice, much more than just giving rote percentages or odds.
I assume IBM has a division working on the software for health. And is this the man in charge of the computer or the health?
The solution side. So,
Solution
Mr. Burrell, so he looks at the combination of the hardware and the software, but especially the programming of the software that really makes it work.
Now, is Mayo using Watson?
We are. So Mayo is using Watson initially in trying to help make decisions about therapy for cancer. And part of the reason for that is because it's become so much more complex. I'm not an oncologist. And when I look at people that I see who I've found to have cancer, and then look at how the oncologists have to make decisions, now they have to think about so many things. It's not just a simple diagnosis of lung cancer. It's lung cancer plus 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different tests related to the genetics of the tumor. And there's a specific treatment or option for every one of those. Not like it was when I started in medical school 30 years ago, where it was lung cancer and there are 2 options.
Yeah. it's becoming an enormous, you're just describing the problem.
Yes.
So, okay. And now, that's one of your speakers. We were talking about your speakers. The
So
Watson director from IBM.
Right. I think I mentioned we'll have Will Steger. So he, of course, is one of only 4 humans who've gone to both poles. And what we're hoping to hear from him are some really significant personal insights about how you can move from an idea to getting people to follow you and help you achieve your goals. This year's theme is aimed at trying again to give people the confidence that they can take an idea and turn it into something that really will work.
But are you aiming at individuals who would, or a movement of all the people who come and hear about this?
Well, we hope we will have a big movement leaving Rochester, Minnesota after Transform, and that it will go back to communities across the globe and start really beginning to think about things differently and implement some of those kinds of ideas that people were able to hear about here.
Because the first thing you have to do is tell them about it, right?
Yes, indeed.
And that's what you're doing. And then you have some social events too, so they can talk with each other and get that movement going.
We have a number of social events. The other thing that we're going to do this year in an election year is bring back the Theater for Public Policy. And one of our partners, Delos Living, who is part of our Well Living Laboratory in downtown Rochester, is bringing a really spectacular group of people led by Dick Gephardt, formerly a congressman from Missouri and Speaker of the House of Representatives, who will share with us some remarkable insights again about how you take one idea and you begin to create a movement. And in particular, Mr. Gephardt's perspective as being a former leader in the House of Representatives, being able to mold diverse views and sometimes views that might start far apart, but to get them together and result in moving forward in a productive way. Something obviously I think most of us think we need more of now.
That's going to be exciting.
It should be great.
That's going to be refreshing in an election year.
That was part of the reason that we decided to get the Theater for Public Policy back, because they're an improv group. They will be going through the audience, trying to sense what people are thinking, and then we will use them interacting with our speakers and with our moderator, John Hockenberry, to really get people to think about what they can do in a very different way.
Okay, let's talk about average citizens who would like to watch part of this process or all of it.
So the first thing to do is actually go to the website, Mayo Clinic Transform 2016. You can look at the number of speakers we have in the program, and if you wish to register, you can. There will be a summary of events that we will have. This year, there will be a public event that we'll announce more about a little bit later in terms of innovation in public spaces.
And when will that be?
Well, that will be probably the second day of the conference, but in terms of locations, there's more to be determined yet.
We'll have fun in that new civic center.
We're looking forward to it. The entrance was still under construction when I drove by this morning, but
yeah, it's a hockey rink done.
well, really the images that were available to us last year gave us great hope for the future, looking at these wonderful spaces that are in the construction. I can't wait to see the inside of it.
But it was good last year too, though.
Yes, but this will be an even better venue, and we've learned actually the importance of built spaces and how they can affect people's ability to think and behave differently.
All right. Let's just talk briefly about the Innovation Center. And it's still in the Biobusiness Center in downtown?
The Well Living Laboratory is in the Biobusiness Center. The Center for Innovation is actually in the Gonda building on the 16th floor. But the Well Living Laboratory is a separate facility that we partner with Delos and run.
Do they have public tours?
There are not public tours. The laboratory incorporates residential spaces and office spaces. So there are actually people that are working and in the future will actually spend time living in the space, and our lab staff will be observing them, seeing how their behaviors and their health changes in response to changes we might make in the environment. So because it's an active laboratory, we actually don't do public tours there.
But because like the windows will change colors coming in?
You can change windows, shades, the wavelength of the light, the air quality, the air temperature, vibration, noise, all of those are parts of the environment that are being studied.
And what do you do with the findings?
Our goal is to make people healthier. So this movement is to try to think about how we can create an environment. Again, people spend most of their time at home or in some other place like an office building or school. So how can we create a built environment that will promote health and healthy behavior?
And how can that apply to all the people? I mean, are you talking about building codes and properties and construction?
Yes, the well living standard, which is the basis of this work, is modeled after the LEED standards that were developed for green buildings. But in the well living standard, what we hope to do in conjunction with Delos and the Well Living Institute is to provide evidence from the laboratory that will help make recommendations to architects and engineers and even neighborhood planners. So although this is a small area, just a residential space and an office space, we're thinking too about entire buildings, and we're thinking too about neighborhoods and communities. And so we're just at the very beginning of how this, we think, could transform an approach to the built environment that would promote health throughout the world from the perspective of Delos.
You know, not enough is said about this future. We're in a different kind of an environment because right now we're in a political environment, but there is not enough exposure to these ideas so that average people can know that this is happening.
So we try to make these stories more obvious to people. It's always difficult to get stories out in an environment like this. In fact, when we were talking about Transform this year, we were actually lamenting the fact that it would be in the middle of a really intense political season. I have to confess that at least once I said to our communications staff, but that's okay. By the middle of September, people will be so tired of hearing things political that we could get lots of attention.
Amen. We're ready. All right. How is this working with Destination Medical Center?
This year we're actually partnering with DMC to do an innovation activity for the community. But Transform over the years has attracted lots of people to Rochester, and if you think about the capacity of Rochester to attract great thinkers, Destination Medical Center is part of that. So how can we attract people, not just for a Transform conference, but in the long term, we're thinking about our role even within Discovery Square and how we could be a foundation for attracting people from across the country to come to Rochester and work with scientists and physicians at Mayo Clinic and with other entrepreneurs within Rochester that really will advance our concept of transforming health.
So you might even be doing a little recruiting when some of these minds walk through Transform.
We always are looking for those, and in fact we have some staff members who came to us because they came to Transform.
Yeah. I would think so, because when you see the remarkable things you're doing. I think that Destination Medical Center is going to be doing something on placemaking.
Yes. It's part of an effort to look at the public spaces and how they would fit in innovation. So
my first thought was, how can they compete with the Transform? But you worked it into
not a competition, it's a collaboration. So
I've heard that before. That's good. All right. Dean, as you look at these big ideas, do you keep your hospitalist hat on and apply them to hospitals, or do you go to the greater community, or both?
Both. But I love the idea of bringing some of those well living standards into the hospital. We had and an entrepreneur come and present at CFI this summer about changing the amount of sunlight that comes into a room with the device that she created. And so I think there's lots of things that we can learn from Delos and Well Living and hopefully translate that into hospitals, because they're not always very bright, sunny places. They're kind of dingy once in a while.
Yes. What else?
What else? The transformation and the things that are happening because of Dr. Wood's leadership and the entire team at CFI. There is just remarkable energy and opportunities to improve the way we live in our communities, but the way the hospitals and the healthcare centers interact with the communities. And I think that this collaboration that we have with DMC during Transform, and the other academics that we're inviting in for a consortium that's meeting just prior to Transform from around the country, we're going to be sharing a lot of ideas and the whole concept of making change possible. We're very interested and very energized by positive change. And so all of this coming together from outside of healthcare, within healthcare, is just going to create a milieu where we can do some pretty amazing thinking. And that's what I'm excited about.
What's amazing and exciting is that this is back to the original ideas of the Mayo Clinic. Remember when they shared cortisone and their discoveries? And it was this partnership with these other providers that benefited from our work. And you're doing this again, but on the delivery of healthcare, right?
That's correct, Jane. In fact, if you think about the greatest innovation of the Mayo brothers, it was this concept of team-based care or group medical practice. And at the time that they started in the early 1900s, they were largely rebuked by medical leaders of the day for these kinds of concepts. And as we think about how we move even to where people are, there's still some resistance that I see when I go around the country to the idea that you could let people do things at home. The OB Nest project was something that we worked on several years ago and recently has been published at national meetings or presented at national meetings. Changes the concept of care of pregnant mothers from a really physician or obstetrician-centric approach to a mom-centric approach. So we would even send Doppler monitors home with moms where they could listen to their own babies. People can do lots of things. We just have to be able to throw off our old way of thinking and let the new go.
All right, we're down to our last 3 or 4 minutes. Will the building that John knows what they announced for the kind of the incubator for ideas and development of jobs, is that going to link to the Center for Innovation, excuse me?
We certainly hope so. So there are discussions ongoing now about where Center for Innovation might have its ultimate home, and Discovery Square is one of those possibilities. So with our colleagues at DMC and with colleagues at Mayo, we're sort of hoping that we'll have kind of a ground floor location that will be even more accessible to people in the community, as well as people coming to Rochester who want to partner with us at Mayo.
Discovery Square, that's
Yes.
the way. All right, 1 minute left, and Dr. Huddleston and Dr. Wood, would you like to just use that minute and tell our viewers what's the most exciting thing that's going to happen in Transform?
Actually, you never know what the most exciting thing is going to be because a lot of what we do is unscripted, but it will be fun for sure.
And Jean?
And we're going to have a Mayo Clinic technology that is going to be taken up by a business and spread around the world.
Oh, that's exciting. All right, and you'll be working with DMC.
Yes,
Yes.
we will.
Thank you, Dr. Wood, Dr. Huddleston.
You're welcome.
I hope you don't wait another year to come back because we found all these areas that our viewers would be interested in.
Well, we're grateful, obviously, for your interest, and we're looking forward to having you there this year as well.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank
Jane.
you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, our viewers, for being with us this week. We'll be with you again next week, same time, same channel. In the meantime, have a good week. Have a good night.